Welcome to This Week in Morgan County. I'm your host, Russell Mokhiber. Our guest this week is Nico Mokhiber. Nicholas is my son, and he's just completed a thru hike on the Appalachian Trail. Nico, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Nico, now I know the answers to all these questions, but people want to know.
Okay.
So we're going to go through it.
Okay.
What made you want to hike the Appalachian Trail?
Well, the first time I heard about the Appalachian Trail was when I was home sick a couple years ago. My mom came in to me and she showed me a documentary of the trail, a National Geographic. It was about an hour long. And after I saw that documentary, I became more interested in the trail, as well as I've always been very inclined and interested to go outdoors and explore and to have adventure and to seek adventure. And when I heard about the trail, I found this was the perfect way to find that adventure.
Now, we've learned in studying the trail and going through this adventure, and people are really excited for you and for your completing it, that about 3,000 people started this year wanting to hike the whole trail.
Yes.
But only about a quarter, 750, will finish. You're one of those.
Yes.
When your mom and I drove you to Springer Mountain to start the trail down in Georgia, you and I hiked to the top.
That's correct.
You went off and came back. It was like a false start.
Yes.
We came back up to the top of the mountain, and we were told, actually, this is one of the things happen with young people like yourself. They go up there, they get scared, and it doesn't happen. And you were ready to come home with us.
Yes.
We met a couple named Daniel and Paige who were taking care of the Georgia part of the trail. You're ready to get into the car and come back with us, and then Daniel said, "Hey, will you take this garbage with you going back down, because we're walking the Georgia part." And then they took off. And in your mind, what was happening at that point?
At that point, my mind was already made up. Like you said, I was ready to come home. And
We're just walking one night on the
yes.
trail.
Oh, not I did. Yeah, right. Walking one night, and when I heard that there was an opportunity, that there were other people, and I was not going to be alone, my mind just clicked, and it was saying, "I'm going to do this." And that motivation, that click, has stuck with me through the entire trail. And that's what actually kept me going.
All right, so let's get this clear. You were ready to throw in the towel
Yes.
on day one.
Yes.
And we heard that happens to a lot of young people. That's part of the 2,200 people who don't finish. They quit in the first week or so because they get scared or whatever it is. And just the fact of Daniel and Paige walking that trail, in your mind, you thought there will be some company.
There will be some company, and I won't be alone, and I will have help if I need it. And that's what I learned, is the trail will provide when you ask for it. And I asked for it at that moment, and so that's when Daniel and Paige came up. And through the Georgia section, I did actually hike with them a little bit as well.
How often did you see them in the Georgia section?
Maybe once every other 2 days or something like that. It wasn't really frequent, but they actually, when we came up to a mountain and shelter, they were headed out that night. One of the shelters later in Georgia. When I came to the road crossing next day, they left me a note, and they for me saying, "Email us or to see how far you've gone." And I did when I came home, saying I made it.
You made it the whole way.
And I thank them as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, most people start in Georgia and they hike all the way to Maine.
To Maine, Mount Katahdin, yes.
But you didn't do that.
No.
Why didn't you do that?
Well, the first reason, or the main reason, is because I started late. Most thru hikers start in the months of March and April, and down in Springer Mountain, and they reach Katahdin in Maine around end of August and middle of September. But since I just graduated from high school, Berkeley Springs High School, on May 21st, I didn't start the hike until May 30th. And so that window of me doing a straight through hike was narrowed, and I would have to rush the entire trip, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to...
Because there's the fear that, and this happens to a lot of hikers, they start late, they get up to Maine, they do 2,000
Right.
miles, but they can't finish it
2,000
because there's
plus
snow.
miles. There's snow, and they won't recommend you. They actually sometimes won't allow you to go up the mountain because it's too dangerous, because the snow, this ice on top of the mountain, and so you hiked all those miles, but you can't finish the last couple.
Okay, so instead you did a flip-flop.
What's
which
called
is
a
what?
flip-flop. Flip-flop is the way I did it. I hiked from Springer Mountain to Harper's Ferry, West Virginia, and then you and I, we drove up to Maine, and I hiked south down to Harper's Ferry, and that's where I completed my thru hike.
All right, so you started, we drove up to Mount
Yes.
Katahdin, started there, you hiked south.
And I hiked south, and I met my old path in Harper's Ferry, and that's where I completed the entire trail.
Hikers, when they're on the Appalachian Trail, don't go by their actual names.
Not generally, no.
Not generally.
Just the tradition, no, they don't.
Your name, to me, is Nico or Nicholas Mokhiber,
Yes.
but on the trail, your name was?
Well, there's the term is called a trail name.
Okay.
Trail name is just something happens to you on the trail, and someone will give it like a fake name to you. So my name was Birthday Bear.
Birthday Bear.
Yes, because the way I got that, when I was hiking through the Smoky Mountains down in North Carolina, Tennessee, I was hiking with another section hiker. A section hiker is someone who does large sections of the trail. They don't do the entire thing at once, but he was hiking with me that day, and I came upon a shelter down in the Smoky Mountains, and there was a bear on the trail, and this was the first bear in my entire life I saw, and so I was unsure of how to deal with it, but he saw it first, so he knew how to deal with this. And what you're supposed to do when you see a bear is to make yourself look big and to make a lot of noise. And most often than not, they would run away. But this one, when he made the noise, didn't. And the bear started to walk towards us on the trail. And I was asking him, is this a real bear? Is this supposed to happen? No, this is not a normal bear. There's something not right. And
Because he was following.
he was following. He was coming towards us on the trail.
Right.
Where we were walking. So we stopped. We turned around, and we were constantly making noise, but the bear didn't care. And the way we lost the bear after hiking back up the trail 3 tenths of a mile, we went into the woods. We hiked into the woods, and we went around it. But he didn't follow the bear. Apparently, the bear didn't follow, because we didn't hear anything behind us in the woods. But we got back on the trail eventually and kept hiking, but on that day that happened, it was my mom's birthday, henceforth, Birthday Bear.
And Moses was the name of the
Yes, that's
section
correct.
hiker.
Yes.
Moses gave you that name.
Moses, I told Moses that today was my mom's birthday, and so he gave me BB, or Birthday Bear.
Birthday Bear.
Yeah.
Okay. And when we actually went to the top at Mount Springer to start you on your trek,
Yes.
we ran into some women who were really anxious about bears in the Smokies. And they scared me a little bit, saying there's going to be bears, you got to do this, you got to do that. Well, actually, how many bears did you see on the trip?
Total of 3.
3, okay.
Of the entire trip. Over the course of my trip, only 3. And all the bear, that was the first bear, Birthday Bear, that was the first bear. I saw 2 other the last 2 in Virginia. But they were the normal kinds, where I made loud noise and they ran away.
And you came across one pretty close. Tell us.
Well, I was hiking alone, and which I did my entire trip, but I came around a bush, and the bear was sitting right on the trail, right in front of me. Not like maybe farther the space between us, a little farther than that between you and I. And he looked at me surprised. I was surprised. We stood there for a split second. I clicked my trekking poles, and he ran off. He bolted.
Nico, how do you think walking this, the 2,200 mile, 2192 miles, has changed you?
I've have seen a huge change in the way I think about things. The way, first off, the major things I've noticed is becoming more independent and more confident in myself, and just in interacting with other people, because that's where there's a lot of people on the trail. Right. It's also called the People's Trail.
Are there a lot of foreigners on the trail?
There are a huge number of, yes, there are a lot of foreigners. There are a lot of U.S. Americans as well. Yeah, there's a lot of people from around the world: Germans, Canadians, English. You
mentioned there were a lot of Germans this year. What was the explanation for that? The number of Germans? Something about a documentary that they showed in Germany. Did you hear about that?
I don't think.
Okay, I heard that there was a documentary about the Appalachian Trail that was popular in Germany, and that's why there are a lot of Germans there.
Okay.
But maybe that's not the case. What about gear?
Yeah.
Tell us
Yes.
how big your pack was and what was in your pack.
My gear was, the big three that is a backpack, the tent, and a sleeping bag. And also a sleeping pad, but that's personal as well. Some people don't. The majority of people do. But my backpack, I had two. The first one that I had was an REI backpack, and it was around 70 to 80 liters. That's how much that's its capacity. That's how much you can put into it. So my sleeping bag, that was my backpack. My sleeping bag was a Big Agnes, and my tent was a MSR. And then those are the most important.
How many
gear.
pounds were you carrying every day?
With a full resupply and around 2 liters of water, which I carried every day. 2 liters of water was my average. I was carrying around between 35 and 40 pounds. That's around the midsection. I heard someone, and I met someone who had 25 for his max. Some people 8 to 10. That's ultra light, or you get up to 55. But that's on the heavier end. I was around the 25 to 35 is average.
What's the story with food?
The food is...
How did you get food? What did you eat every day?
Well, resupplying on the Appalachian Trail is very easy. The trail goes through multiple towns, and in those towns you have grocery stores, you have gas stations, you have convenience stores, you have big supermarkets once in a while, and so you can get food there. But the way I did it was my parents, they sent me drop boxes or mail drops every 5 days. And they put in 5 days worth of food to get me to the next mail drop. And inside the mail drop was freeze-dried food, dehydrated food, sticker bars.
Freeze-dried for dinner.
Yes. Well, the meals.
Give us breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Okay, so for breakfast, I had instant oatmeal and hot chocolate and coffee. And then throughout the day, I didn't have lunch that often. I just was eating bars throughout the day. So my big meals were in the morning and at dinner. At dinner, I was doing Mountain House. That's a very common one. You have freeze-dried and dehydrated. You have different types of meals there. You can do pasta sides. You can do instant instant mashed potatoes as well. And to get because you're eating a lot of carbs. You're burning so many calories off.
How many calories are you burning a day?
Around 5,000 to 6,000 calories a day. And so actually...
And how many miles are you walking a day?
Average, I was hiking 18 to 20 miles a day.
Okay.
Yes.
What about water? Are you drinking, water's key, you gotta hydrate.
Yes, that's correct.
How do you get water? How much water are you drinking?
Well, especially for the seasonal thing, it's in the summer you drink more because it's hotter. Water is abundant on the trail. at least every day, you will come across a stream or a spring or a creek. And that's where you can refill your water bottles. And some people, they don't filter. And the filtration, it's a personal thing as well. But the way I always filter my water, and there are many ways you can filter. You can do chemical, you can do tablets like iodine or anything like that. But there are filters also called Sawyer filters. And the way that works is that you get a bottle. You screw it onto the bottle. You put the dirty water in, and you just squeeze. The dirty water goes through the Sawyer, and that's the filter, and it comes out clean water, clean purified water.
And there's no problem in finding clean
No.
water, for the most part.
For the most part, no.
Okay. Tell us your routine. What time you got up, what time you started hiking, and your routine through the day.
Okay. Well, in the beginning, it rained every afternoon practically.
Down south.
Down south in Georgia, North Carolina, and Tennessee, it rained pretty much every single afternoon. And so I would wake up, and I didn't want to get wet. I didn't want to get my stuff wet. So the way I beat the rain was I woke up around 5 or 6, and I started hiking around 7:30, and I got into a shelter around 1 or 2, and then I was already in the shelter, and then the rain came, so I was already dry, and that early rise for me was with me through the entire trail.
And you start walking in the dark.
Yes. Well, in the summer, it was light by then.
It was light.
But in the fall, like end of September and October, I was hiking by headlamp, and I was hiking. Sometimes started hike around 6, and I only had to hike by headlamp for an hour, and then the sun came up.
Can you look at a hiker and tell whether they're going to finish or not?
Just by looking at them?
Or by personality?
It's very hard.
But what differentiates? I mean, I know luck's involved. People get injured and so forth.
Yes.
But what advice do you give people who want to do a through hike on the trail and finish?
My main advice would be one step at a time. One step at a time through your gear, your research, your hiking, and you take it one step. You don't look at the whole big picture. You look at one detail and you say, what makes me comfortable? What will this help me? Do I really need this piece of gear? And in fact, you really don't need that much. All you need is a sleeping bag, a backpack, a shelter, tent, food, and water, and you can have a successful through hike on the Appalachian Trail.
Now, you took a tent.
I did.
How often did you use it?
Less than 10.
Less than 10 times.
So the majority of the time, I was sleeping in the shelters.
You're out on the trail for 5 months,
Yes.
less than 10 times, but you need it every once in a while because there's not shelters at every spot.
No, there is not. But there are shelters in a day's hike. They're on average around 10 to 15 miles in between.
What can you tell us about your experience with the people on the trail?
The people were the best part of the trail, I would say. Besides the views and everything else, I would say the people, because they were supportive, they were helpful, they were kind, they were sweet, and the trail, like I said, the trail will provide when you ask for it. And you can talk with someone for hours and just have conversations and stories, and you learn so much through those stories.
You told me a story about one of the first people you met down south.
Yes.
What was her name? The nurse.
Oh,
from,
yes.
Tell us about one of the. And obviously this was traumatic for you because it was the beginning of your trip.
Yes, it was.
You were anxious, and tell us about that encounter.
Well, it was the day after what happened down south, and I came to the first shelter, and she was sitting at a picnic table. And
what was her name?
Her name was Queen of Spades. Her trail name was Queen of
Queen of
Spades.
Spades. Okay.
Queen of Spades. And The way she got that was, I think she was playing cards with a group of other guys, and she kept on getting dealt spades.
Okay.
So that's why she was named that. But she told me as we talked, she was a traveling nurse.
A traveling nurse?
Traveling nurse.
Okay. From where?
I think she was saying from Africa.
Okay.
She was English, and we had a conversation. And yeah, she was hiking. She was actually just finishing her hike. She started in Harper's Ferry, and she was just doing the southern portion of the trail. She was hiking Harper's Ferry south to Springer Mountain, and then she was gone and she was done. But she was very interested and interesting, and she was nice as well. So.
How do you think walking the trail not just has changed you, but changed your life and your perspective on life?
The way I see it is when I hike the trail, I can use experiences and what I learned from it throughout my everyday life. You can, just like one step at a time, you can use that method to your work schedule, anything you on a run. I mean, it's a huge mental game, hiking the trail. But when you overcome that, you can use what you learn practically everywhere in what you do.
There was a guy this year while you were hiking the trail who set the trail speed limit.
Yeah, well, world fastest record on the trail, yeah.
Right. And there was controversy when we went up to Mount Katahdin because he celebrated there. It's supposed to be a pristine area. You're not supposed to bring a lot of people. You're not supposed to, celebrate with alcohol, but he did all that there. And there's a controversy. What's your take on that, on what happened there?
Well, I can see why, and I can see why he celebrated the way he did, because, I mean, it's a huge accomplishment. His name was Scott Jerick. He completed the trail in less than 47 days. He beat Jennifer Davis hike, I think, I don't remember her time, maybe 48 or something like that. Okay. But yeah, when he got to Katahdin, Baxter State Park was kind of took it heavy and took it seriously, and started putting the restrictions more. And they were threatening, and they were saying, if you don't change the way people hike here, we will not allow hikers to come here. And my take, I really don't have a view on it. I don't have an opinion on that. So.
Okay. Did you hike mostly alone, or did you like hiking with people?
I preferred to hike alone. I had my own schedule. I had my own routine, and I felt like if I was hiking with other people, they would. I mean, it's nice to see other people, but I just like to hike alone.
Okay. Who takes care of the trail? How's the trail maintained? Tell us a little bit about the trail community. We just have a couple minutes left.
Okay, that's fine. The Appalachian Trail Conservancy and headquarters is actually in Harper's Ferry. It's halfway, and they oversee maintaining groups. There's around 33 volunteer groups. There's volunteer groups that go out on a section of a trail, and they move rocks, they put stones for steep sections, they cut fallen down trees, they clear bushes. And there's a huge process that along with it. There's these people called ridge runners. They go out.
Ridge runners?
Ridge runners.
Okay.
They go out before those volunteer groups, and they're like scouts. They see the portion of the trail, and they say, this needs to be done. They have a checklist. They clean shelters. They say, hey, we need this group to come up here and cut this fallen down tree.
Did you run across those people on the trail?
There were a couple days where I crossed, and when I passed them, I said my thanks, for the work, because they put in back-breaking hours lifting heavy rocks on those steep mountains to allow through hikers to hike and have a successful hike.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're all very proud of you.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations. There's
you.
huge community support. More than 30 people, I think, came out to welcome you at
I
Harper's
believe
Ferry.
that was right. Yeah.
You know, people are writing news stories about it and so forth. And people are really excited for you. So it's a big accomplishment. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on the show.
Hope to have you on again sometime. Good luck in college next year.
Thank you so much.
Until next week, I'm Russell Mokhiber, and this is This Week in Morgan County.